Welcome to the Spa Girls podcast, the self-publishing podcast for authors. You're in the right place for the best writing, marketing, and publishing advice, plus interviews with industry experts and best-selling authors. I'm Cheryl Phipps.
I'm Shar Barrett.
And I'm Trudy J. And this week we have Becca Syme. Hey!
Yay! Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
I
Thank you
didn't
for
even
having me. I'm so excited.
I didn't even do an intro. I was just like, it's just Becca. Like she's come back.
Becca's back in town.
Like what bio? We don't need a bio. Everyone knows. No. Okay. I should probably do a bio just
Do
in
a bio.
case. All right, I'll just do the bio.
Let's pretend we're professional, Trudy.
Yeah,
Imagine
pretend. I mean,
you.
there's no. Yeah. It's been 10 years, Shar. I mean, if it's not going to happen, it's really not going to happen.
As good as it gets.
Okay. I'll read your bio and then we'll get on to the actual topic, which is around planning and kind of the myths around planning and, why we should all or should not be doing things around planning. But first, let me read the bio. Becca Syme is a cozy mystery and romance author who also holds a master's degree in transformational leadership and has been a success coach, primarily using the Gallup Strengthsfinder, for more than 15 years. In that time, she's individually coached more than 6,000 authors. I want you all to think about that, 6,000 individual authors at all levels. She is the author of the Quit Books for Writers series and the popular Write Better Faster course, and the host of the Quitcast for Writers podcast and YouTube channel. That's a lot of words in writing and a lot of coaching. Like that's just crazy. Yeah. Is this is a very personal question, but is Becca short for Rebecca? Did I even get that right?
Yes.
Or is it okay?
Yeah. Yeah, Rebecca. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But it doesn't sound right, so I'm just going to keep calling you Becca. So we last actually saw you in person last summer at the RWNZ conference in Christchurch in New Zealand, and it was super exciting to hear you in person. I loved it so much. So what have you been doing since then? Tell us an update.
Oh, I mean, writing. I feel like I have written a ton in the last year, which has been really fun. I do a lot of writing for my Patreon and stuff like that, but I also have been working on several different nonfiction books. The first of which is releasing soon. But I have other books that are planned that I have been doing just almost head down. You know, most mornings I feel like I'm doing nonfiction writing. So
Wow.
I'm really excited about what is upcoming, but it has been a lot of sort of retreating from being around people and trying to do a lot of focused writing work, which has been
Mm,
great.
that's awesome. Well, that's
Yeah.
exciting. We're all in for some really good, solid Becca nonfiction. That's going to be great.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. There are 55 chapters in the new book, and it's
Wow.
going to
That's awesome. And we'll talk about the Kickstarter and the current book
be.
very shortly. But first we're going to talk about um, uh, planning and kind of the mindset and some of the myths around planning is kind of where we're starting from. It might go off in all sorts of different directions. But so because I just watched some of a session that you had and you talked about planning as in not everyone should plan. Not everyone can plan. And for me, that really clicked because I'm the queen of planning, but you talked about execution being quite a vital part of that whole planning process, and that's often where I fall down. So should everyone plan? How does is that a good place to start?
Yeah.
And she's
That's
shaking her
perfect.
head.
Yeah, not everyone should plan. Absolutely. So the real mythology around planning is that if you plan it, you will do it,
Mhm.
right? So there's this kind of catchphrase, I think, uh, in the productivity industrial complex around the fact that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? Like that is the big repeated phrase. Everybody kind of repeats it. And the thing is, if you are a planner, like someone who will plan and then execute, then that is often true. If you don't plan to do something, you will often not do it. But that is about 15% of the population. So it is not a significant
Oh,
portion.
it's not.
So there's sort of three parts to the planning process. The actual sort of creation of the plan or the dream or the intention, like what is it that I want to do? What do I hope will happen is one part. The steps themselves, right, of the actual what is it that I'm going to do to execute that. And then the execution of those steps are three separate pieces. And some people are really great at the executing, but not the other two. Some people are great at the steps, but not either of the others. And some people are really great at the vision, dream, goal, etc., and then neither of the other two. So to be good at all three of them requires a combination of traits that is just not very common. And yet, most of our expectations around planning are built around this idea that if I just make a plan, that it is going to be executed, and therefore all I need is the right planner, or all I need is the right, whatever process, tool, course. It doesn't matter, because everything hinges on this, if I plan it, I will do it methodology, which just is not true for most people.
Mm. I love
That
that.
is music to my ears, because
Mm.
as somebody that's invested a lot in their encumbrance planners and stickers,
Yeah.
it works on a daily basis, but it's the long-term plans where I come unstuck.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep. It's so the question that I often will ask people when they come to me for coaching about planning is, what has worked in the past for you and what hasn't worked? Because, and the joke that I always make, and I made this on the quick cast as well when I talked about it, is if a planner has never worked for you in the past, it's not going to work for you in the future. So
Are
there's
you
some
sure?
other,
Are you sure about that?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
But planners do serve a function for some people that helps them to execute more than they would have without the planner. So then the question, the sort of second question is, what has worked? Like, what has helped, or what has it done? Because there's the I guess maybe what our expectations are, what we would like to have happen based on how we plan, is all of you have an avatar of a person in your head, of someone who does the 10-year plan and the 5-year plan, the 1-year plan and the 3-month plan and the 1-month plan and the 1-week plan and the daily plan. And they know exactly what's happening, and then they execute exactly what they plan. Everybody has that avatar in their head, right? We all want to be like that avatar, which is why we are planning. But then we are basing our expectations on an idealistic scenario of a person who is a very specific type of person that I probably am not that type of person. But if I make a gradient of how productive could I be based on that person's scale, and say maybe 100% productive for me is 10% of that person's productivity. And that may actually be my ideal, because there are other things that are more important to me in my life than being the ultimately maximized productive person in the world. And I want those things to be important to me, and therefore they should take precedence when I'm deciding how to spend my time. And then I want to not follow that avatar of that person, because I'm not going to be happy if I get that level of productivity anyway. Like, it's not actually going to produce for me what I think it's going to produce.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Like looking at someone and thinking that that's what you want, when you're not actually thinking about what else they're not doing or what else they're
Yeah, what are
cutting
they
out
giving
of.
up?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
That's
Yeah.
very true. So you talked about like that avatar, um, as you know, this is this perfect scenario, and then the reality for you is not that. How do we, like I kind of imagine someone sitting lost and burnt out in the middle there going, this is what I want and I can't figure out how to get to where I should be. Like, is there a is there a quick path between
Yeah.
this?
So I'm a person who, I always want to deconstruct the question that I'm asking, right? So if we're talking about, let's say the Amy avatar, right? Like the person that I'm talking about in this scenario, I may want to look at other elements of her life and how they line up with what it is that I value. So if I have, and I actually have I think it was on the October 2nd episode of the Quick Cast. I have this values worksheet that I took people through on the Quick Cast, where it's like, okay, go and rank all of these different values that you have and then rank them again and then rank them again. And then, because the goal is to sort of come up with like, what are your ultimate values and what are the 3 or 4 or 5 things that are the most important to you. And if you were to take Amy Avatar's values, she might have being the best, being first, success, money. Like she might have these 5 values that appear nowhere on your values sheet. You may have a completely different set of values that you want to see accomplished out of your life. And if you want to organize your life like her, you're also going to have to learn how to value the things that she values, which means you have to devalue things that you currently value. And the hard part is if you talk to any of the Amy Avatar people, they will often say things like, well, I prioritize my family as well. Well, I care about the environment as well. Well, I do, and I'm like, right, but not at the same level that I do.
Mm.
And that's not a negative thing for Amy Avatar. It's not like the people who are wired that way shouldn't exist. They should exist. They should be who they are and be exactly who they are. And also, I should exist and I should be exactly who I am, and you should exist and you should be exactly who you are. We don't want to just make you into a facsimile copy of Amy Avatar because then you're not going to get what you want out of your life.
Mm.
So I like to start with values because I think it is a better indicator sometimes than strengths of how we're going to prioritize our time and how we decide what deserves sacrifice
Mm.
and what doesn't. Because if I have being the best deserve sacrifice on my values chart, then that means that I'm willing to sacrifice my family, my time with my friends, my travel, all of these things that I currently prioritize higher than that. I'm going to have to start deprioritizing those things and then reprioritize this other thing. And do I really want to do that? No, I don't. So then I want to start learning how to value what it is that I care about higher than other things that I'm supposed to care about.
Mm. Yeah.
And so many of the productivity books or systems really focus on that Amy avatar, where and the sort of I've seen it or inferred, it's been inferred a lot, you're picking the wrong things to value kind of thing. Like you've got to pick one thing and you're not picking correctly.
Mhm. Yeah. And I say this also about the people who are Amy avatars, like the people who would prioritize their work over, let's say, like hanging out with their family. I don't think that's an innately bad thing to do. I think we judge that as being bad because of, lots of different systems that exist around us. But the reality is, the people who prioritize work over everything else bring something to society that nobody else brings, that we also want those people to be able to be the way they
Mm.
are and to not feel like bad for that. But similarly, I want to not feel bad for
Mhm.
not caring that much about how much money I make and
Mm.
not being driven. But like it should be possible. And it is if you're actualized, if you're integrated enough. I don't care about finances. And when I'm around people who do, I love that they do. I love that I don't. But it is genuinely hard to do that. It's
Mm.
hard to
Mm.
allow other people to value something that you don't value without somehow innately devaluing it in our language.
Mm.
And so I'm very cautious too to say, like, I want myself to feel like I can value what I value. And also, the Amy avatars out there who are listening, right? Like, we love that you exist. We're grateful for you. I don't want to be like that, but it doesn't mean I think less of people who are that way. It's just this is what my priorities are.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And that's
And I
really
think
good.
you get a gut feeling about, like when you say, not spending time with your family, and that makes me feel really bad. Like for me, I could not give up the time that I share with my family. I couldn't do it. But I understand for other people that because of circumstances or whatever, it just isn't a priority. It just isn't a thing. And
Yeah.
like you say, it's not a bad thing. It's just that we're wired differently. We, you know,
Yep.
have different beliefs or different. Our desires. Mm.
Yeah. I chose not to have children. Like I mean I also don't have a uterus anymore. So by the way, highly recommend. It's incredible. But but um but I didn't always feel that way, but I do now. But I chose not to have children partly because there were other things that were more important to me.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people that I know don't understand that choice. Like they don't understand why someone would choose to be child free. And it sort of confronts a little bit of the sort of maternal nature, right? Of like, especially my personality type, I have a little bit of a maternal nature. But it is almost like we have to have this way to have conversations with people about the choices that they decide to make that is like I can love and value the the existence of someone who is completely unlike me
Mm.
and also question the premise when I start to feel defensive about like just as a for instance, I'm imagining some of the Amy avatars listening to me say things like I prioritize my family and they don't. And I know some of my friends who will be like, I do, right? Like I prior even if they are Amy avatar people. And I'm like, yes, you do in a different way than I prioritize
Mm.
mine. And I think it's okay that you are that way in terms of like, I validate your ability to make that decision for yourself. And you are also wired in a way that makes it really easy for you to have that combination of, sort of vision and strategize and execute. And so it makes it really easy for you to work more. And then they feel guilty that they don't spend enough time with their family. Whereas, sometimes I feel guilty that I spend too much time with my people, right? And it's like, this is just how we all are internally. Part of the work that I do is trying to help us normalize whatever decisions we are making.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It's like everyone is guilty about something. Everyone feels they should be
Yep.
doing something else because
Mm.
and
Mm.
Yep.
and so how do we get to that place where we go, actually, I'm just doing the right things for me? Is that just time and effort or
So some of it is personality for sure. Like some of us by nature are looking for the problems in ourselves so that we can fix them and sort
Mm.
of not necessarily from a perfectionism space, but more just because we can very clearly see all of the problems that exist in us. Some of that's old tapes, like from childhood, parentified stuff, right? But some of it is just personality. It's the fact that some of us are more conscious of the ways that we don't measure up than other people are. And so some of the journey of if I am a more self-critical person, some of the journey of integrating my ability to be however I am is in the trust that how I am is okay and good,
mm,
which is why I like strength so much, right? It's like, well, there's an explanation for why this behavior is happening in you that's a beneficial explanation. Other people who have this are also good and are contributing and are doing excellent work. So we can trust that it's okay for you to be wired this way. You don't need to change anything about yourself.
mm,
So something like strengths can definitely help in that arena. But also, I think the there's something about the knowledge that I don't want somebody else's problems. Like, yes, I do want to get better at what I can get better at, and I always want to be improving, but like I look at my friends who have children and I think I'm okay not having those issues. Like
Mm.
I am sad sometimes. I have a niece who's amazing. My sister has a really beautiful daughter. That I love her to pieces. Um, and also, there are things about that life that I know if I had chosen that life, I would have a hard time with it. So, some of it is knowing and accepting who I am as a person and knowing that I may have some maternal instincts, but I don't believe I would have made a great parent for multiple reasons. And so a lot of my, child-free choices have more to do with how I think I would have been as a mom than they do with like any of my own, desires or ambition or anything like that. But I have to be okay with who I am and for me, again, it's the knowledge that I don't want to have the problems that other people have. I am okay with the problems that I have. Like I'll take
Yeah.
my
Mhm.
brown
What's that
grass
saying
on
that
my
if everybody put their problems together, in a bowl, you'd usually take your own things
like
home ones
yours.
back,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah.
That
Yeah.
is funny. You said a couple of things. So you talked about trust and trusting yourself, and the other word makes me think of is intuition. And you've said this in some of the things I've listened to, is that being able to trust your intuition and trust yourself. How if you're someone who doesn't do that already and you're worried and you're feeling lost around that kind of thing, like in terms of say planning or just general decisions in your author career, how how can we learn to do that? How can we learn to trust our intuition?
Yeah, some of the process is knowing that objectively there is nothing wrong with trusting intuition, right? Like over the course of human experience, intuition has developed as a way of giving us access to knowledge without the burden of data, right? So everyone, and I say this in my intuitive book, everyone who is intuitive is actually data pattern reading. They're just not conscious of it. So the intuition is not I had bad shrimp. It is actually I recognize this pattern. I know something like this. This is familiar to me. And it's the decision making process that happens because I'm able to put together some kind of pattern that makes me know this is just like what I've seen before and it's okay for me to make this decision. So, trusting intuition for me is partly knowing that that process is actually happening, that it isn't just me being finicky. It's not just me, being dramatic. It is actually that I have a capacity to data read and pattern read at a very high level, that my brain cannot give me full access to all of that data. And what we almost always see is like you'll make an intuitive decision like, oh, TikTok is not for me, right? That's a big one that I hear people say. TikTok is not for me. Okay, great. 2, 3 years later, and I'm now watching what people have to do to keep their TikTok going or what TikTok costs people or whatever. And I'm like, yep, I knew that I would not want to have my face on camera that much, but I didn't know that I knew that at the time. I just had this intuitive sense. And it's really important the difference between intuition and sort of that like rhetorical question asking kind of like anxiety, right? Is intuition will tell you what to do. The opposite of intuition, that fear, is always wondering, asking, predicting, right? It's asking questions. So intuition is very, very certain and declarative in terms of like, oh, I shouldn't do this. Oh, this isn't good for me. Oh, I should do this. Oh, that's not for me. Like it's very specific and certain, even if you don't feel it in a like sort of activation, I can take action. What you feel is, oh, I don't think I should do this. I don't think this is for me. Ooh, this feels like a good idea, right? Versus what happens if this happens? What happens if that? Like, that's all fear. That's not intuition. Like, we want to differentiate between those things. And one of the reasons we don't trust intuition is we have a hard time differentiating between I'm worried, afraid, scared, and I know this is not mine. I know you shouldn't do this. I know you should do this, that kind of thing, right? So
Mm.
that differentiation I think is important.
That's good
Mm.
because that was literally going to be my next question. How do you know fear versus intuition? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. I just wanted to say, because you were talking about the Clifton strengths and using them before, and I just wanted to say how lucky we are actually to have someone like you in the author sphere who
Oh,
knows all about
yes.
Clifton strengths and can kind of almost teach us that it's okay for all of us to be different because
Hmm.
honestly, the echo chamber of indie publishing is kind of bad enough as it is without, imagine if we didn't
Yeah,
have Becca here to tell us all about the Clifton strengths and the so
exactly.
so can you talk a little bit about like the echo chamber of indie publishing and how we kind of can, I don't know, how we deal with it or how we can kind of make sure we're making the right decisions for us, I guess.
Yeah, the core of strengths, right, is that everyone's differences in brain wiring matters in how they will live, how they'll be successful, how they'll feel happy, all those things, right? Like the differences between each of the four of us or the five of us, right, matter significantly in what we're going to choose to do and not do. They're going to matter in what we're successful and not successful at. And so often what happens is we listen to people on stages, like workshop stages, or we listen to people who are advertising or who are on, podcasts or whatever. And we automatically feel uncertain about what we should be doing because we're hearing so much of this, like, well, you have to do TikTok, you have to do direct sales, you have to do translations, you have to do etc. And once we start to hear it in two places or three places, then it
Mm,
starts to feel like it's a directive. Like, well, everyone is doing this. And then I keep going back to the confirmation bias, right? Which is a big problem that we suffer from biologically. I don't think we realize how much it directs us, where we ignore the fact that if you go into larger groups, you'll see hundreds of people who are doing any one individual thing that we would all say everyone should be doing this, and they are not having success at it. So
mm,
we ignore all of that data because we keep seeing the data of like, oh, well, and planning is a great example. Look at all of these people who are showing us their amazing planners. Clearly, planners are the way to go. This person said they love, like Erin Condren is a big one, right? Like they love this, they love that. And I'm like, great. If that works for you, that's excellent.
mm,
But we can hold back sometimes from questioning the premise of this advice because we feel like we're hearing it from
Mm.
everybody says you should be doing this. Anytime we hear ourselves say, everyone says, immediately question the premise.
mm,
Always, never, everyone, no one. Should is another one. Should is a word. Every time we hear it, I want us to question the premise. And it's because those are often signals of some kind of pattern reading bias that we have that is an attempt of our brain to solve an uncertainty feeling. And I think the problem with indie publishing is that it is an inherently capricious and competitive industry. And we don't like either of those things. We really like it when things are very predictable and very known and very sane, right?
Mm.
mm,
And indie publishing often feels capricious and um, uh, chaotic, right? Like
Yeah.
it just feels like things change all the time and we don't understand that things are new and etc. And it's like, okay, right, but there still are some things that you want to allow yourself to feel uncertain about. You want to let yourself have enough uncertainty because if you feel too certain, it's usually an indicator that you're ceding your autonomy to somebody. Like you're just
Mm.
doing whatever anyone says. Like that level of certainty of like, I am completely and totally fine. I am completely right. It's like, well, that's not actually a great sign. Like you should have at least a little bit of friction, a little bit of uncertainty, a little doubt.
okay.
That's really freeing. And I also think that's why people pay enormous sums for some interestingly interesting coaches and things. And I'm not talking,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
nobody that we've ever interviewed, but because people want to seed that they want somebody to tell that fulfill that
Yep.
autonomy role, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Mm,
that makes
Yep.
sense. Because
Yeah.
that's been a question I've struggled with is despite all the evidence, to some of these different black hat operators, how is it that they're still going after all these years? And if you've been around for 10 years like I have, you'll know the types
Yep.
of people. And that's how.
Yep.
Ha!
Yep.
Thank you. It solved a puzzle in my head.
Yeah, it's so easy to just decide I feel very uncertain. They feel very certain. I'm just going to
Yes.
turn over my autonomy to them because they feel so certain, especially if I feel threatened on any level or unsafe. Like uncertainty magnifies, right, when we feel threatened. So the more
True.
threatened we feel, the more uncertain we feel, the more we go looking for something to solve those problems.
Mm.
And then the person who makes us feel the most certain, the most stable, right? And which is often someone who's promising us things that don't exist,
Mm-hmm.
things that are not real, like
Yeah.
they're the sort of charlatan-ish kinds
Mm-hmm.
of things, right? Like I've gotten a couple of ads recently from like clearly somebody has figured out that there's a lot of money to be made in teaching authors how to do things or whatever. And I'm starting to see things like you can be a millionaire,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
that kind of like, oh, I've always wanted to make $1 million writing, and now I too can do this. And if
Mm.
I just do 6 easy payments of 49.99, I
Yeah.
too can be a millionaire, right? And that kind of stuff for me it's just so dangerous, especially if anyone is saying you don't have to work. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
no work required, or here is the silver bullet. Like
Yeah.
I'm always so self-conscious about that because anything anything that promises too easy of a path is wrong is wrong. It's
Yep.
wrong.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Misleading, really misleading,
Yeah.
because
So
there's no
misleading.
such thing as an easy ride, is there?
But it's
Yeah.
also, it's finding the right people for that. You know what I mean? Like they know their
Mm.
audience. So
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
sometimes
And
the
to be
audience,
fair, like we talk about this every once in a while on the quick cast because I genuinely believe the people who listen to like this podcast or my podcast are not the type of people who are going to be in this space, right?
yeah.
Because I do feel like there's a sort of professional minded indie publishing, sphere of people who are like, I will do this, I will make this happen, and I feel like they get more attracted to stuff like what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then there's like um, I've always wanted to be a novelist, and they're allowing me to do this, and all I have to do is press a button, and it's going to
Mm.
be so easy.
And they're
And
selling the dream, right?
Yeah.
The
yeah, they sell the
fantasy.
dream,
Mm.
but there isn't actually a desire to do any of the work. And so
Mm.
I think that particular type of person is definitely a target for
Yeah.
that type of, but they also may not be that sad when it doesn't work out. It's like, well, then
Mm.
they'll just go on to the next
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
who promises them, versus I think what some of the more professional minded authors who are looking for an easier way than what they're currently
Mhm.
experiencing. I think what they think they're looking for a silver bullet, but what they're actually looking for is just more comfort. They
Yeah.
just want more
Mm.
certainty and more comfort. They still want to do work. Like they
Yeah.
still want to edit or write or market, maybe not all three of those things, but they still want to do something in the realm of storytelling. And so I feel like they're less likely targets, but still
Mm.
there's all shades of that, right? Like
True.
there's
Yeah.
all shades of the silver bullet
and I
promise.
feel like also there are people who are like, well, I'm number three learner, number one input, who just like feel the need to do all the courses just because that's,
Yep.
Asking for a friend.
I do yeah. I do have to validate that though, just because so it's expensive, right? Because I'm also input and learner, my top five.
Mm.
It is expensive, but I do think if people are genuinely hoping to be helpful in the material that they're presenting on
Mhm.
any level, and I pay $49 or $99 or something for that class, and I get some nugget of something
Mhm.
out of it as a learner input, I'm happy with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
I think we feel guilty about it because we're like, well, I just keep taking courses, like I'm never going to end taking courses. It's like, right, but that's also how you get energy.
Mm.
It's how you stay invested, how you stay hopeful about the future. Is there's always something new I could be learning about this industry.
Mm.
And that's part of how we maintain the forward motion. So while yes, we have to be cautious about spending too much money. We don't want to overspend our budget. but also for inputs and learners who are by nature want to take in a lot more information and learn a lot more things. I think that's part of the fun, is that
Yeah,
we will
it is.
never run out of things to learn.
I know. That's for me. Yeah, I'm there as well.
Yeah.
100% there as well.
Whereas I'm
But
not.
No.
no, that's it. And
I have a
and that's
cut-off.
so
I have a cut-off. It's like, yeah.
and I think that's the value of strengths, because it allows us that are like that to understand you, and for you to understand us, that it's not necessary deflection, but it's like it's it's what gives me joy about this industry is actually learning, and a lot of it. And yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
she says frantically trying to who has an entire Trello board with all the courses that I've bought, and
Hasn't done. Yeah. Same. I'm not talking about that. I'm not thinking about that right now. It's fine. It's been
But
done.
I've adapted, and I've learned that the 1 or 2 day ones are the best for me, just the short, and then
Yep.
I can,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's the completion of the courses that I get
Yeah.
the joy
It's a
from.
commitment, isn't it? If you
It's
bought
an
it,
enormous commitment, and
yeah.
also you also have to do it knowing that there will be conflicting advice, and
Yes.
often,
Yep.
and that's okay, and it doesn't mean that either are wrong or either are right. It just is
Yep.
part of it.
What I
Yep.
love is that actually, is it, I still don't know what it's called, BeccaCon. I'm just going to call it BeccaCon. That you
Yeah.
did earlier in the year, and you had a joy of missing out level, JOMO level, which was you didn't have to do the whole conference. You could just pick and you could pick
Mm.
3 of the topics and just do those, which was actually quite a good way of doing it for people maybe like Cheryl, who doesn't want to do the whole thing. Whereas someone like me, I'm like, oh my God, but what if I miss out on something and there's a piece of information that, but that's
Well,
fine.
and
It's, yeah.
the people who that JOMO level is really made for, and Cheryl, this may resonate for you, it's I know just what I need help with, right? Like
Mm.
usually the people who don't have the higher input or learner, they have a real clear sense of like what could I be increasing my knowledge about, or like what could I be moving forward in. If I see something about that, I'm willing to do the work to go through the course and learn the thing and take in all the input. Whereas like an input and learner person gets so much joy out of all of the, right? Like
Mm.
all of it. Whereas the lower learner and input wouldn't get the same joy out of it. Like it doesn't bring them as much motivation to get the things done.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's
It makes
interesting.
total sense.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
I was in my 30s when I realized that everyone else didn't think like me, and it
Yeah.
took me a long, and now,
I think I'm pretty sure I was older than that one, Trudy.
yeah,
So you
well,
did good in
and
your 30s.
it was like this work thing, and we were doing like introvert extrovert and talking about anyway, and I'm more extroverted than introverted and whatever, but and now we're doing these Clifton strengths and even just the value stuff that you've talked about with us today, like all of that just kind of
Mm.
re-emphasizes the fact that we all think differently and we kind of just and that's okay and we just do what works for us. Yeah, I love that. I'm going to get back onto the actual topic at hand again. So 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 there's an ebb and flow in publishing. I think that's fair to say. There'd be very few people who, I mean, you might be high
I think
ebbs and
Becca's
flows,
word
but
of chaotic is actually
yeah, yeah,
great.
yeah, chaos.
It feels like that at times.
So how do we deal with that, like in planning, but just also in general? Like, how do we? Is it just knowing it's there and that's okay, or is there something and our
So it,
different strengths dealing with it in a different way?
yeah, usually it really depends on the person, because for some people they have really consistent ebb and flows. Almost like when we go through, I don't know if any of you have ever done Sarah Cannon's work before, but where she kind of does the like go back and look at all the days and how many days are you actually able to work, and like cross off all the vacations and cross, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. It's like when you really look at what your year is like consistently, you are most of the time getting about the same amount of work done in certain seasons. This is like a specific type of person. So they'll always be getting work done in the spring and in the winter, and usually not as much in the summer. And then they'll have a few weeks in the fall when their kid, if you're American, right? Your kids get back into school, and then it's almost like every year will be similar for them. you'll see the same thing in August, the same thing in September, the same thing in January, the same thing in April. And then once you hit, and again in the US, if you hit June, July, and August, now they're back to like not being productive again. And so some of that, for that type of person who is a really consistent in their rhythm, it's knowing nothing's going to change. Like if I have school age children, this is how I'm going to be with school age children. I want to count on it happening. And then I plan to be that type of person. Then every time I go through a transition, then I re-examine the patterns and have they changed, right? So there's some of that ebb and flow that happens naturally. For a lot of us who are biologically menstruating and things like that, right? We have a natural ebb and flow of energy that happens. I don't know if you've ever seen the actual like progesterone, estrogen, like there's a graph about through your 28 days, when do you peak at different hormone levels and what does that mean? Like, what does it cause you to do, to a point where you can almost guarantee and predict that on day 4, you're going to do these things, and day 18, you're going to do these things, and day 17. And it's like, well, of course, because your hormones are fluctuating and they're doing, and then you go through perimenopause or menopause and all that changes again, right? So the ebbs and flows for me, and part of this is my personality. I know they're going to happen. Like I know they're coming. I don't ever expect there to be no ebb and flow. So I'm very accepting of that when it happens, because what I see with people when an ebb happens, then all of a sudden they're like, "Why is this happening to me?" And I'm like, "It's June. Happens to you every June. How about we just adapt to it, right? Like we just expect this to happen now." Or like there are certain points in my month where I can't stay up past 9 o'clock at night. So why am I scheduling things that have me going from 7:30 to 10 p.m.?
Mm.
Because I now know this is going to happen, right? But I think we have this desire to have no change.
Mm.
And so if we don't internalize the fact that we are going to have difference sometimes, not everything is going to be the same, not everything is going to be predictable, and we can practice a little bit more in the acceptance realm of like, I have to make the best out of what I have. It's the whole lemons from lemonade thing, right? Like lemonade from lemons. I
Mm.
don't want to just be mad about the lemons. Like, make some freaking lemonade and have a party. Like, it will be fine for us to accept and adapt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe when we're thinking that we're being inconsistent, in actual fact, we're being completely consistent.
Completely
Mm.
consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just not looking at
Great
a big enough
point.
pattern,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I
That's
like
Yeah.
that.
I
Mm.
do too.
Mm.
The other thing I think that I've noticed too is with the chaotic or with the ebbs and flows of particularly the indie space, a lot of authors maybe that had seen incredible success at different times, and we all know that the dashboard on Amazon or Drafted Digital wherever isn't consistent, but it's human nature
Yeah.
to want it to be a, if not a straight line, then an only going up line,
Going up.
right?
Only up.
Anyway.
Any tips on dealing with that one?
Yeah. So sometimes it is that we think it's unsafe, right? We think it's unsafe for
Mm.
the royalties to go down. And so we have this expectation that it should always be up. And if it is down, it's never going to go up again. And I feel a little bit like the bird song, right? Everything has a season, turn, turn, turn,
Yep.
right? It's like,
Mm.
okay, if you can treat your publishing more like, let's see what happens, rather than this expectation that it has to happen in this certain way because that's where stress and overwhelm and burnout comes from. And allow yourself to be a little bit more accepting of what it is that you get. And definitely looking for, like, could I have done something different? Next time when I do this, could I do something different? Sure. But the more locked in we are to like, it has to happen this way. And if it doesn't, I'm going to die, right? Like that feeling, we just don't realize how stressful and bad that is for us and how much it's going to lead us into burnout at some point. So I really want people to have this sense of you think that it's dangerous when your royalties go down because you think that they're never going to go back up. But when you look at the bigger picture patterns, again, like come out to the 50,000 foot level, and you could have blips and then nothing, and then have another blip that keep rising, right, for a long time. So there is nothing predictable about going down or going up. It is all a season. Like
Mm.
everything is a season. And I'm not going to sing it because we don't
Ah,
have the money for
you were going to
royalties, but
sing for a
Wendy
second
would have.
there. Yeah, Winnie would have
And
sung
I
it for you.
and just sort of following on from that, I think there is also going back, we were talking about confirmation bias. I think when you're in that fearful state, and I know I've been in that state over not necessarily publishing, but many things, there's something about, I don't know whether it's something, whether the bots are watching us or what, but suddenly you're delivered more and more on social media, particularly, that confirms that to
Yes.
you, that confirms that
Yep.
viewpoint, which is very, very easy to go down a hole, like to go spiral downwards with that, and that whirlpool of worry.
Yep.
That's a good one.
Yep.
A whirlpool of worry. Oh, I love that. I'm going to
Welcome to
write
my
that
life,
one
Trudy.
down.
I've got the life ring on, mate, and I'm frantically doing that.
Worry. I'm totally writing that down. Yeah. But is it like when you buy a new car and then suddenly you see that car everywhere? Like it's that kind of thing, right? Like when you're worried about something, suddenly it's everywhere. Yeah.
Yep.
Or you're in the
Yep.
whirlpool of worry, suddenly
Yeah.
the
And you
problems.
don't see them, the good things that are happening and the
Yeah.
people that are doing really, really well, because we have them on the podcast all the time, people
Yep.
that
Yeah.
are doing fantastically. So it's a myth or it's an
Yep.
untruth that everybody is suffering at that one time. It just
Yep.
may
Yeah.
be people you see or are in your sphere, you know.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
Or
think
it's what
maybe
you're
it's
looking
part
for.
of that safety thing too, because it's human nature to want to kind of, I guess, and I'm just spouting words here. I have no actual scientific background for this, but it's kind of relieving that other people are going through the same thing as you, even if it's
Yeah.
shit,
Mm.
because you're not the exception then. It's sort of safer to
Yes,
be with other people.
yes.
Yeah.
That
You
makes
haven't
sense.
specifically done anything wrong that you're being
Mm.
punished for,
Mm,
right? Or
That's
like,
good.
yeah, it is
mm,
important to know that when royalties go down across the board, it is likely that many people are experiencing royalties going down, but it's not 100% of people. So
No.
like there's always and in any downturn, there are always people who are making money in a downturn of any kind. And then those people don't continue to make money indefinitely forever, right? Unless they're Amazon, apparently, but
yeah.
they don't continue forever to do that, right? Like there is always an ebb and flow to everything. And to me, I guess the thing that makes me feel good about that is like if my royalties or my income goes down, and I've even seen this happen to myself, like, okay, great, let's deal with whatever that new number is, and then let's make a plan based on that. And
Yeah.
then if it goes down again, then we'll make a new plan based on that, and then it will go up. Like it will go up, and then it will go down again, and it will go up again, and it will go down again. Like it is almost like this physics truism that
Mm.
like it's never going to just continue to go in one direction. It's always going to change. And
Mm.
then it, like we talk about this in our business phases stuff at the BFA, right? Like at some point you stop 2xing and 3xing and 4xing, and then you level off and you just start to make relatively the same amount of money for,
Mm.
sometimes a decade. And people really struggle with it, but it's usually because they're trying to interpret some kind of meaning, or they think that because a pattern has happened that that means it should always happen. So if I 10x my income my first year and I 10x my income my second year, and so now I'm making $100,000, all of a sudden I'm like, well, I should be able to make $1 million next year. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, that's generally not how that works. and
Yeah.
and when it is, you're not going to go from 1 million to 10 million most of the time, right? Like at some point you hit a spot where you only go 5 to 10% up or down every year, even when you are continuing to make a lot of money. And then you will go down at some point. So like this idea that it needs to happen in a certain way in order for me to be happy is really just a recipe for stress and burnout.
Mm. Yeah. And that's the thing, like you like the whole if we go back to planning as the concept, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to plan to be able to get where I want to go, and then when you say, well, actually, some people are not going to be able to do the plan and the execution, and they need to figure out a new way or whatever. I'm kind of like relieved at it. Like I'm like I don't want to do the planning, but I feel like there's something in, you know what I mean? Do you understand what I'm kind of meaning? Like
Yep.
and is that
Yep.
just the problem solving and pattern recognition thing that we're having to fight against? Or because my natural
Yes.
inclination is not to plan, or at least
Yeah.
to,
Yes. Some of us believe that we should be planning because we just hear it so much, right? We
mm,
hear the fail to plan, plan to fail, etc., that kind of thing just so consistently that we now have internalized it. Some of it is old coding from childhood where we have been taught so much that good people plan and that good people execute their plans that we believe that that is true when it just isn't, like objectively isn't true. And in fact, there's such a range of like, how are people successful when they're executing? Like, some people are the most successful when they really just focus on what are the things that I want to do today? Because then they're getting the most of what they want out of every day. And wherever they get in the future, it's not like that means they're not going to make money. That somehow, if you don't set a goal to make $100,000, you're never going to make $100,000. That is actual bullshit. Like it's just such a load. And it bothers me when people talk about it like that. And it's usually the people who are wired to think that way, who are saying those kinds of things. And it's just so untrue. I made $1 million on accident. Like there is no way, and I never ever would have said, and not in a million years would have said that one of my goals was to make $1 million. I never would have said that.
mm,
And yet it happened. So why? Why? If I didn't plan to do it, why did it happen? And it really frustrates me when we don't see enough of those. Like literally, and I use myself as an example all the time about this. I don't ever plan for anything to happen that happens. I show up and I do the stuff that's in front of me because I feel like it's mine to do. And sometimes I plan things and they go horribly wrong, like to a point where I never ever should have planned to do that thing that I thought was so smart and wonderful and amazing. It went horribly wrong. And then I show up to do something that somebody just offhandedly mentioned to me one day. And it's like, well, the universe is just going to hand you $1 million for that idea, Becca. And I'm like, oh, well, I wish
Thank
that
you.
was more predictable, but I'll take it. Whatever happens, happens. But
part of me
also,
is really relieved to hear that story, but I feel like there'll be
yeah.
people out there who like it really stresses them out to hear that story.
Oh,
Yes.
Like
sure.
Yeah.
because
Yes,
that's not
absolutely.
following you didn't
Because it
plan it
doesn't
and
follow
yeah,
the thing that they think it's supposed to follow, right?
yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like if when you study human success enough, you just see there's so much diversity to human
Mhm.
success. It's almost like there not only is there no best practice, there's just no way to predict. There's no best practice.
Mm,
What is a best practice for one person is so antithetical to another person that you can't even really counterbalance for it, right? And that puts the onus on me as a consumer of media and a consumer of data, to be really willing to trust my intuition when I hear something that's like, plan out your next 10 years. And I'm like, yes, that's for me because I love doing that. And then follow that intuition versus like, I would be like, no, I don't need to do that. I
mm,
don't.
Mm,
And I'm high futuristic and I still don't want to do that, right?
mm,
Like I just don't resonate with it. But I trust myself now enough to know I don't need to take that class. That's not for me. But for
mm,
the
mm,
people it's for, they need it. Like it is life to them, right? So
mm,
It
it's
makes me
really
feel a
just,
lot better because one of the
oh, good.
questions that often, so I think also it comes from a corporate thing, that those of us that were in that world, so much of it is about planning, and I kind of get it. You're trying to keep everybody on the same kind of vision or whatever, but
Yep.
um, So yeah, that's really good. Sorry, I'm just
Yeah.
I'm kind of blown away by that, but it makes me feel so much better because I'm a huge fan of Sarah's. We've had her on the podcast,
Yeah.
and I like the 90
I am
day because
also a
it
fan of, so like
yeah.
I
Well,
have to say,
who
like,
isn't a fan of
I
Sarah's? Let's be fair.
suggest people take her class all the time because
Yeah.
when it works for you, it's a really excellently
Absolutely.
constructed
But I've
class.
adapted it to myself. So yes, she got me
Yep.
down the Erin Condren because what gives me joy, and I'm going with the joy feeling now, is my Erin Condren planners. I had a year earlier this year, I thought, this is, and trust me that the actual cost of getting them here is insane. And I downgraded to a normal one, and I was completely discombobulated. So that says to me, okay, you know what? This is it. The 90-day thing, looking at things really helps the overwhelm and the anxiety. I struggle with anxiety a lot, and for me it's containing that anxiety to now I do the plan. I don't necessarily look at it again, but it's a way of getting
Yep.
all the crazy thoughts out of my head. And
Yep.
but whenever I went to any planning seminars or looked at courses and things, and anybody that said, imagine your life in 5 years, I was literally unable to see that. I could
Yep.
never see that ever.
Yep.
And I was like, that's like a superpower. How do people do that?
Right. On some level, it is actually a superpower. Like
Yeah.
there are people who, and I would say there's a certain type of futuristic person and a certain
Hmm.
type of focused person who's really able to see what they want that to be and to have a very clear picture of what that looks
Yeah.
like. But it is not for everyone. And I think
Yeah.
the place that I get off the bus a little bit with any kind of planning or manifesting or anything like that is when we start talking about it as though it's magic.
Yeah.
Like that there is this magical experience that every single person who uses it, and I'm like, that just the data just doesn't support it. The data
Yeah.
does not support the fact that it works for 100% of people. What the data does suggest is that the people it works for, it really works for,
Hmm.
and everybody else it just doesn't work for. But I also want to underline that doesn't mean that learning about it is useless or that,
Mm.
like if you still feel an intuition to go towards those kinds of things, but you're not a high futuristic or a high strategic or high focus, then there's something else there for you that,
Mm.
again, your pattern recognition stuff is your intuition is guiding you towards. And there may be something really useful that they teach you that is not for you to follow 100% the system. And like you said, Shar,
Mm.
I adapt it for
Mm.
myself. Like I do the version of it that works for me. And you can still take the same course as someone else, but not feel like you have to do it exactly the way that
Yeah.
they do it and then still be helped by it. Right. So it's like
Absolutely.
win-win.
I
Yeah.
know. And it was from Sarah's course, it was the little thing of actually planning for days off. And I mean, I used to suffer badly from migraines, and it was like, that makes sense. That's why I'm not
Yeah.
productive 30 days a month. You know,
Yeah.
it's like it's such a simple thing, but sometimes it's those things that you need somebody to actually voice that you don't think about yourself.
Yep.
I
100%.
actually feel like that about the strengths because it's no secret that I fought against doing them
Yes.
for some
We
time,
talked
and
about it. Yeah.
we had a conversation, and you gave me the freedom to not do it, and of course then I was like, well, now I must do it, and but it did give me a lot of freedom. I mean, initially I thought, well, I'm a bit less because I don't have this input, and I don't have this, and I don't have that. But as time has gone on and I've warmed to what my strengths are, I get it. I get what they do for me, and I get that being happy in your life in the moment is for me is like it's a huge thing. And of course one of my strengths is empathy, and I want that for everybody. And that's,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I think I don't know where I'm going with that, but I just think it's what Shah said, you just pick and choose.
Mm.
And
Yep.
and what you said too, like trying something is not a bad thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think that so like just as a for instance, strengths is a great example of like what's not for everyone, right? there are some people out there who just instinctively make decisions that are aligned with their personality
Mm.
because they have so, and I feel like Cheryl, you're one of those people. Like I was not surprised when you showed me your strengths and you were describing some of them. I'm like, oh yeah, you already are aligned with these things, and that's very normal. And so the programs are not going to have the same kind of impact, right? Especially if you're also not high input. It's not going to be as exciting to go
Mm.
through some of those things. And then that means that if I am a type of person where something that everybody else is doing doesn't resonate with me, I want to try as hard as I can to trust that it's okay that it doesn't resonate.
Yeah.
Like, and that's
Yeah.
why I said you don't have to take it, because if it isn't calling to you, like as an
Mhm.
intuition, it's probably not useful for you in that moment. Because I really do trust people's intuition about, like, when somebody tells me I don't want to do social media, I literally do not balk anymore at just saying, then
Mm.
don't.
Yeah.
Mm.
Just
Yeah.
don't do it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because if your intuition is being that loud about the fact that you do not resonate with the way social media functions, the likelihood you're actually going to be successful using it is so low.
Yep.
So the people who have this sense of like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, I shouldn't be doing this, but should I? But should I? But should I? Right? Again, that's the fear, is the question. The
Yeah.
intuition is not a question, right? It's, I don't think this is for me. I don't think I should be doing this. We really need to get better at allowing ourselves to not do something just
Mm.
because everyone else says that we should be doing it, and know that it's safe objectively to not do everything that everyone
Yeah.
else is
I think
doing.
I,
everybody suffers a little bit from FOMO from time to time. It's
yeah.
100%.
not letting it get the best of you.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
The better
That's
of
true.
you.
Especially when we're doing the podcast every week and there's
Oh
someone
my
new
God.
on who's
Yeah,
The
doing
and you get
this.
things,
exposed to all
all
of
the
it.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I cannot tell you the number of times that we've got off the recording and we're like, oh, we just sit here staring at each other like, oh man, now we've got
Now we have to do this thing.
now we have to do this or
Got it.
that.
Yeah.
Try. How do
We've
we?
got better over the years, to be fair, though.
Mm.
It's sort of like, oh, I feel like we have. When
Mm.
after you have to, otherwise you wouldn't. You could just be a professional learner and not
Yeah.
actually do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard somebody describe, the big conferences, sort of like InkersCon and stuff like that,
Yeah,
right? Where there's like 100 people who are presenting, right? I heard somebody describe it once as a buffet,
it's
where
true.
like
Mm.
all of
Yes.
the stuff is available,
Yes.
and then you decide what really resonates with you and what doesn't. What are you hungry for? And I feel like the podcast that you all do is a little bit like a
Yeah,
buffet, right? Like
yeah,
Mm.
Yeah.
people listen consistently,
yeah,
and when something really resonates, they're going to listen more and maybe listen multiple times and maybe follow that person down whatever road they're going on.
yeah.
But there is this sense of like, not all of this is for me. It's
Mm,
okay that not all of this is for me. So I'm really glad that you
yeah,
do this, because it provides people with a lot of exposure to a lot of different ideas, and also the knowledge that I think the four of you carry, which is you don't have to do all this though.
yeah,
Like it's okay if this
Yeah.
doesn't resonate with you.
yeah.
And I
We
think that's
try to
something we've
convey
always,
that message.
yeah, we try. And
Yeah.
actually more so since we've done the strengths and listened to you talk, because I feel like,
Definitely.
because we are all very different and we have done things very differently,
Mm.
and that doesn't, and that's okay. And that's what we've had to kind of learn
Yeah.
over time. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I just, before we end the interview, which I feel like is, I could keep talking for another 3 hours if I'm honest, but
Exactly.
I'm going to try not to. Um, so you've got a Kickstarter out, and you're
Yes.
doing the, is it, have I got it right? It's 7 years since you put the Dear Writer You Need to
Yeah.
Quit book out, and this is now Dear Writer You Still Need to Quit
Yep.
Kickstarter. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And
That is it.
so I had one quick question about that one, because there's this line of one of the things that's in the book, and I want you to decipher it for me, just for the benefit of everyone listening. So one of the things that the book has inside it is how to reduce decision fatigue by utilizing success metrics for choice architecture. And I went,
Yeah.
what does that actually mean in
What is
layman's
that? Yeah.
terms?
Yeah. Let me translate what that means.
Please do.
So a metric for success is something that has some kind of measure, right? so that there's a measurability to, like, strengths is a metric. We give you a test, you come out with certain results. It tells you this is what you are based on your answers. This is how you should function based on those, right? So strengths is a success metric. The Enneagram is another one. We do a lot. We do a lot of work in the BFA with archetypes and stuff like that. So those kinds of structures that are based on, if you are not making these decisions, you don't need to worry about those things. So if you are wired this way and you are at this place in your career, these are the things you need to worry about, and you need to stop worrying about all of these other things. And what I realized in the first book, as much as I loved writing the first book, what I forgot to put in there is that you should be saying no to most things. Like almost everything that you hear about in this industry, you should be saying no to, in terms of, is it actually going to help you move the needle? And the reason isn't because they aren't good things to do. It's because in order to move the needle, you have to go with your whole face at something. Like, it's really difficult to see results if you are not giving it a good try. So you have to sort of fully execute on a strategy in order to know for sure that whether it works or not. Like the people who try TikTok for 3 days and are like, well, I didn't become an instant bestseller, so I guess that doesn't work. It's like, well, you didn't try enough for long. Like, you didn't learn how to do it. And so part of what I want to do is reduce the number of things that authors are worrying about doing down to a number of things that are based on some factors that we can give them measures for. So, like, where are you in your author industry, or in your author business? How much money are you making on your releases determines what phase of business you're in. And then how much money you consistently make after that, and how much profit you make that you can reinvest back into your business, determines whether you should be making certain decisions or not. So there's that particular choice architecture of, like, is this even the right thing for the phase of business that I'm in to be worried about? So just as a for instance, building infrastructure around things like doing translations, audio, Patreon, etc., like things that are long-term infrastructure commitments. If you are not seeing a significant amount of profit on a book release over the expenses that you make back on your book, do not worry about anything that is infrastructure related. Don't do things that require you to commit and make a lot of choices in a direction, because you're still in the research and development phase. And too many people get like, well, but if I put my book into audio, and if I make a Patreon, if I do direct sales, if I, that will make it sell. But they don't realize that they're putting the cart before the horse when it comes to, when it comes to what produces sales. Demand produces sales. If you don't know that you have demand, you don't know that the sales will continue enough to make those decisions worth your time and money. And so a lot of what I want to do with this deck, the digital deck, is to provide some infrastructure and really some metrics around how to make decisions about what to say no to while you're in a phase that is just not necessary for you to be thinking about that. So it is, the deck itself is divided into the 5 business phases, and then we're dividing those 5 business phases in the sort of arcana of the deck into Enneagram numbers, and then we have at least one of the archetype designations. We're going to use the sustainability archetypes, so which I'll talk about in the book. But we may use another one. We may have another archetype set, but I want to try to help people be able to say no to more things so that they can reduce this feeling of pressure about having to do everything, and know what to do in what order, and know how. So it really is just doing what I can to give people guidelines about how to say no to stuff.
That's awesome.
Thank
Saying
you.
no is
Yeah.
quite hard, so I
Yeah,
appreciate
it's hard.
Well,
It
thank you
is
so
hard.
much, Becca, for coming and
It's
joining us
Yeah.
today. It's been fantastic. I always love
Yeah.
chatting
Thank
to
you for
you,
having me.
and listening to you
I'll
speak.
be,
Where, if someone wants to go and back the Kickstarter, is that what's
yeah.
the best? How do they get there?
So if you go to betterfasteracademy.com/links, the first link on there is the Kickstarter. And if you're here after the Kickstarter's done, then the pre-order for the book or the link for the book will be on there.
Amazing.
So betterfasteracademy.com/links, and then that will get you everywhere in the
Perfect.
BFA.
And then
fantastic. Thank
they
you.
want to go and hear more, just go to the Better Faster Academy website as well and look in other places.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you so much. And Shah, where can we be found?
We can be found at spargirlspodcast.com. We are almost at our 4,000 people on YouTube, so
Right.
make us a happy team. And if you could subscribe there if you're not already, and welcome to our new people that have found us there. It's wonderful having that audience on there as well. And thank you also to all those that have left us reviews lately as well. We really, really appreciate that on whatever podcast app you're on. It's all appreciated.
Yeah, it really is. So thank you, Becca, and thank you to all of our listeners who've joined us here today, or watchers if you're on YouTube. We will be back again next week with another episode, but for now, it's farewell from the Spargirls.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.